Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman. As usual, I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the stories and issues we think business owners should be following this week. Great to have you here, Gene.
Glad to talk with you, Lauren, as always.
Always a pleasure. Let's dig in. Gene, you wrote another installment last week in your kind of ongoing series about why you hate employees. At least that's what I call it.
No, not true.
Oh, it's a little true. This time you took your shot at Gen Z. Please tell us why.
Well, I wrote a piece in The Hill because I'm very tired about hearing about Gen Z. It's like everywhere you go in the media, there's something more about Gen Z. You know what? I tell you know what really triggered this one column, Lauren, is that
please tell me.
There was a study from Microsoft that just came out like in this past week, and it was all about it was a new report that said they're making their mark as entrepreneurs. You know what Gen Z and what Gen Z entrepreneurs, 56% of them are concerned about inflation. And I was like, what the hell? Gen Z entrepreneurs. I mean, the definition of Gen Z is that this generation was born after 1995. They're like in their mid-20s. Like the average age of the U.S. small business owner is 55. Like, how many Gen Z entrepreneurs are out there other than a couple of YouTubers?
Or have had experience with inflation or recession.
Or even have experience. I'm like, what the? And I know what it is. It's because Microsoft is trying to jump on the Gen Z train because all the other media is trying to get clicks because, you talk about Gen Z, and I get why they talk about Gen Z because these are people in their 20s and everybody loves people in their 20s throughout all societies, because they're young and they're sexy and they're everything that we're not. So any excuse to talk about that generation is going to get you clicks. Anyway, I'm sick of it, and I don't really care about Gen Z. Maybe if my company sold products
but wait
for
a
Gen
second.
Z.
You're talking in very general terms. In the piece you wrote, you wrote, as a business owner, I would prefer not to employ Gen Zers. I don't have the time to deal with them because my resources are limited. What were you referring to?
Oh, I'll tell you specifically, only because I actually have employed a couple of Gen Zers this past year on a part-time basis, and ain't great so far. They're young. Again, these are kids. The both that I employed are actually they are both like college seniors. Just to give you an example, I don't have the time to babysit these people. Maybe bigger companies do, but small businesses like me, I mean, we don't have the resources to deal with people that have never been in a workplace before, that have inflated attitudes because of social media, and have a long way to go before they know how to read a P&L, have been disappointed by customers and colleagues, have been through and gotten some experience. I like millennials. I hire millennials because millennials now, when you look at their demographic, these people are now in their 30s and even in their 40s now. They've been out in the work world for 10, 15 years at this point. The millennial generation, I mean, I know people love to make fun of those guys, but they're now like managers. They're like in positions of more influence, making buying decisions that impact me. And as employees, these are people that have been in the workplace and have gotten some experience and just have more gravitas and knowledge than the Gen Z type. So
it's the only difference just that they're older and have more experience?
That is the difference. They are older and they have more experience. And I know the Gen Z people are children right now. They're kids and they're no later than in their mid-20s. I don't care. There are these certain...
How old are your kids, Gene?
In their mid-20s, right? I mean, so I know. And by the way, putting aside my kids, which... to be honest, they all have 3 good jobs and they're all 3 like hardworking kids. But I know their friends who are their ages and they're also hardworking as well. I mean, the Gen Z is a good generation. Don't get me wrong. But like, I really don't care if a survey comes out that says that they desire more meaningful work, or another survey that says that they want more.
What's wrong with wanting more meaningful work?
Because they don't know what they want, Lauren. They're 20 years old. I mean, if if a millennial is saying that somebody in their 30s and has been out in the work world for 10 years, I'm paying that more attention than some kid that just graduated college, because they don't know what they want. They talk about, oh, I want more open. I want to work for a company with more diversity. I'm thinking, like, you're a child coming to work. You don't know. You have no experience, no knowledge, no nothing. That's meaningless to me. Just come to work, put in your time, get your education and your knowledge. Give me 10 years of your life, and then I'll start listening to your opinions about the workplace and what you think is important about my business or not. And right now, the media spends too much time focusing on the opinions of Gen Zers. And I just, to me, it's
that's not the Gen Zers' fault.
No, it's not the Gen Zers' fault, but it's certainly, just like I said, in my article, the media has a hype about Gen Z, and I'm not paying attention to them. I don't really care about Gen Z. So there.
Well, I have to say, I admire the fact that actually this includes my kids. A lot of these people, I think, are much more aware of the impact that they have on the world than I was at that age. And I can understand you're not wanting to be lectured by them. That's an entirely different thing. But I admire the fact that they're aware that their presence does have an impact on the world, and they want to have a positive impact. And I think that's a good thing.
I hear you. I think it's an inflated impact. I really do. I think you say, like, they're aware of the impact they have on the world, but I think a lot of them, because of the media, think that they're impacting the world more than they really are impacting the world.
Gene, you are the media. You write for every publication known to America.
I'm taking responsibility for that. You're absolutely right.
All right. Well, I'm glad to see that it's not all employees, it's Gen Z. And among a lot of people, millennials get a bad rap. I'm glad to hear that you see something positive there, because I agree.
Yeah, I think the millennial generation is, they got a bad rap. Do you know why they got a bad rap over the past 10 years? Because they were like the Gen Zers. That's what they got. But now they're older and they're more mature and more responsible, and they have mortgages and they have car payments and they have families and kids and insurance. And suddenly they start understanding why business owners have to make the decisions that they do to make profits so that these people continue to have jobs. Like, something clicks, their minds are more fully formed when they're older in the business world.
That is the way it's supposed to happen. We should all get smarter as we get older. Doesn't always happen. All right, next topic. This also has a little bit to do with young people, especially young urbanites, who Derek Thompson of The Atlantic thinks are going to have to confront reality now and start paying a legitimate price for the goods and services they've been using. His point is that easy money made it possible for a whole slew of startups like Uber and Lyft to charge ridiculously low prices in an attempt to win market share. But the easy money is gone. Those days are over. And everybody's prices are going up. It's not just inflation. It's because the business model is changing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Jane?
I mean, it's a bad thing in the sense that, for so many years, we as consumers, both you and me, regardless of generations, have been enjoying certain services, I think, and his point is well taken, at a very discounted price. I mean, how many years has Uber and Lyft been losing money, funding, their ability to gain more market share, and grow? So, I think, the back off in tech funding, is going to turn around and result in more companies having to charge a higher price and us having to make some hard decisions about what services and things that we want to be using. And I got news for you. That's a big reason, Lauren, why there's the concern about the recession coming, which I don't think is going to be a deep recession, but certainly a downturn is on the horizon, is that as these prices go up, and you talk about Uber as an example, people are going to stop spending when things get to a certain price point. And that tipping point is coming pretty soon. And when people stop spending, then companies obviously stop making money off of that. And they're going to have to lay people off. And there's going to be some cutbacks in services and increase in prices. And all of that, I think, is coming. It's sort of like an adjustment to reality, don't you think?
I agree. I do think there's a little bit of a positive side to it, which is I like the idea of businesses having to be run like businesses and actually make a profit. And, some of those businesses did real damage. I mean, the obvious example is, thank God we didn't invest in taxi medallions in New York City before Uber came along. I think, this has been an artificial situation, and now they're going to have to operate in the real world, and that's not all bad.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And I having said that, I don't know how many examples there are of this in the world, in the sense that we all know about Uber. Amazon has been for years was losing money while they were gaining market share and investing in their infrastructure.
And that did a lot of damage too to, shoe stores in Chicago.
Yep, you're right, and yet Amazon now is is a profitable company. Uber, ever since Travis Kalanick, I think it's
I don't even try.
Yeah, ever since he left the company and there's been new management, they have been driving the company towards a more profitable model, and I think that they're close to achieving that gain. And Uber prices, by the way, have already been going up and continue to go up over the past couple of years.
But, Uber was a brilliant idea. There's no question about it. How bad would it have been if they had charged a real price?
I don't know if they would have gotten the market share that they got, and they wouldn't have had the acceptance.
I don't know. It was just such a convenient service. I think they might have done okay.
And again, you say that it's funny about Uber. Like, Lauren, if I came to you like 15 years ago and said, hey, I'd like you to invest in my company. I'm going to have a bunch of people in their cars picking up strangers and driving them to places. And it's just going to be using an app. Like, you don't mind if your daughter gets picked up by some strange guy and driven somewhere, right? In my service, you would have been like, I'm not investing in that. That sounds you're out of your mind.
You know what?
So I think because they kept prices so artificially low,
I think I would have gone for it. I'm not saying I was smart enough to invest in Uber. But I will say this, I lived where you live in Philadelphia for quite a few years without a car. And I took taxis, I rented cars when I needed one, but I was very happy not to have to worry about the upkeep or parking or anything like that. And if there had been Uber at that time, I certainly would have been all over it as a customer. And, who knows?
Interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing to see, if these predictions come true and prices themselves are going to be rebounding in the tech industry. I think it's just the smaller tech startups that, God, they had so many years. They had such a run of easy money and cash falling from the sky on them. And now, reality has sunk back in. But they'll be back. It doesn't, we'll be back to another tech industry. Web3 will take care of that when that metaverse starts going.
Oh, right. We talked about that last week.
Yeah, you watch out.
All right, next topic. This one's about Chewy, which is the online pet food business. And Chewy is another one of these venture-backed companies that has chosen to lose a lot of money on things like free shipping. But they recently did something, or they have been doing something that I think is, a smart lesson in customer service and social media as well. Last week, a tweet went viral when a woman posted that her dog, Gus, had passed away. She tweeted that she contacted Chewy to see if she could return an unopened bag of dog food. And she was very impressed when they, 1, gave her a full refund, 2, told her to donate the food to a shelter, and 3, had flowers delivered to her the next day. That just exploded, and all kinds of goodwill for Chewy. What do you think of that situation? You have a dog, right?
I do have a dog, and it is extremely sweet and nice and a good thing for them to do. There are books that, on customer service wins and stories of big companies going out of their way to serve their customers in extraordinary ways. And I think nowadays with social media being the way it is, that if you do something special like that, it really can, get noticed, for you. And it's funny, that Chewy did that. This wasn't their promotion or their marketing campaign.
Exactly.
It went just viral because a customer reported it,
Exactly.
And you do think to yourself, if you're running a business, saying like, if we picked like 6 6 customers a month to do something really crazy like that, like something really like above and beyond. You know what I mean? Maybe that's our marketing campaign for the year. We do it and we don't ask for anything in return. And we keep our fingers crossed that one of those customers in a month might post something about it on their Facebook page or tweet it out or something like that. And it could go semi-viral or get some attention for us. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's not a bad marketing campaign to just do that.
Well, the other thing I would point out, and I don't mean to take away from what they've done, which I do think is smart, and I have no reason to doubt their sincerity, but the cost of having a customer return an unopened bag of dog food has to be significant, and there's probably nothing in it for them to get that dog food back. And they took a very smart approach of saying something that people perceive warmly, telling them to give it to a shelter. Everybody feels good about that, and comes out ahead. That's a very smart approach.
I actually think it was the gift that they sent. Was it flowers or something?
They sent flowers, and a lot of people came forward and tweeted that in other situations, I guess when for some reason Chewy had a photograph of the pet that died, they sent a hand-painted portrait of the pet to the owner.
I mean, come on, Lauren. That's above and beyond. I mean, just telling people.
Yes, it is.
Telling somebody to keep the product is, you're right. It's just it's cost effective. Just keep it. It's going to cost us more for you to send it back to us. Telling them to give it to a charity, or whatever, that's also fine. But to send like a hand painted picture of the product or to send like a...
That's got to be... That's an expense,
Yeah, that's an expense. And it's not just like the cost of like doing that, but it's also the cost of like some employee dealing with, ordering it and getting it done and then making sure it gets out there and following up with the customer. I guess my point being like that's extra work to be done by an employee who's probably busy doing a lot of other stuff, and the company authorizing that to be done. I think that's a really great step. And I don't want to turn this into like everything is all about making more money. But, to me, great customer service is the best marketing you can do, and, if you do something over and above, like something crazy like that, and you say, you know what, for this year, we're not going to be spending, we're going to cut our marketing budgets and, on online ads and whatever we're spending on. And instead, we're going to pick out a few customers a month and do something really over the top with the hopes that maybe they'll do the online marketing for us. And even if they don't, we've made the customers really happy and we did a nice thing.
I think that's exactly the right point. And I think, it's really key that it's not that they put out a post saying, hey, look at what we did for Gus's owner. It wasn't that at all. And that authenticity made a huge difference.
It's pretty cool. It's a nice story. And like I said, there are plenty of other great customer service, stories that you could follow. If you just Google customer service stories, you'll hear all sorts of things big companies doing really neat things.
All right, I guess this is kind of becoming a regular feature, but lastly this week, I feel like this is recession watch. Every week I ask you if you've seen anything new. We just got information this past week that a conference board survey found that 60% of CEOs expect a recession in the next 12 to 18 months. In my informal network, just asking around, I am not hearing a lot of people saying that they are seeing a softening in their business yet, but I know you have, talking to your clients.
Yeah, I am. And you and I both have our networks. So it really does depend, I think, on the industry. Like, that's the other thing about just, when you talk to your network, I talk to my network, people ask me like, what's going on with small business? There's like 30 million small businesses in this country. So, and even with the pandemic, some businesses crushed it during the pandemic while others really suffered. So it really, you can't just say across the board, but I can say across the board that, it is very likely from the data that I'm seeing that we're going to be seeing a downturn, in the economy sometime, before the end of the year. And I just, a lot of the data, it's just, not only is inflation at some point is going to have its effect, Lauren, it's not the consumer price index, but it's the producer price index, which came in at 11% this past month, close to it. And I'm looking at key, core prices of manufacturing items, chemicals and lumber and packaging and plastics and shipping, they're all way more than 11%, which leads me to believe that the producer price index is going to be staying up, which means inflation is going to stay up.
You explained to us last week that the producer price index is about the future, whereas the consumer index is about the past. This indicates that inflation is here to stay for a while.
Yeah, for a while. And at some point that hits a tipping point because, wages are not going to keep up with that. And because of that, people are going to start tightening their belt. They're already tightening their belts. They're starting to make decisions about what they're buying. You're seeing it all over the place. And in the end, that starts reverberating through the economy. People buy less. Companies produce less, and therefore their profits go down, and people will get laid off because of it. I don't think it's 2009 situation. I just, we we talked about this last week. I'm not telling people to panic about it, but if you're running a business, you should be prepared for a slowdown, towards the end of the year and into the next year. The only thing that just concerns me, Lauren, is that the Fed is going to be raising interest rate. They raised interest rates 75 basis points this week. That's not going to do it. They're going to have to raise it more. And I'm not hearing a lot of pro-growth policies, coming out. Although in Philly, I don't know if you know this or not, but just today it was announced that Philadelphia City Council was reducing Philly income taxes and business taxes, a small amount, but they're reducing it. That's a pro-growth thing to do, in my opinion. And it came from Philly of all places. So I'm kind of hoping that some of our political leaders are realizing that they need to be a little bit more business friendly if they're going to encourage businesses to make more investments and take some more risks.
Well, Gene, you also told us here about the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is $10 billion.
$10 billion that's available for businesses across the country.
That's pro-growth.
It is financing that's out there that people can use, to grow their. You're right, but that was part of one of the stimulus bills.
But it's just coming out now.
You're right. They're just getting their act together, and it's coming out now. But I guess it just, they're in the business community. They look at, right now the leadership in Washington, which is, we want to tax the wealthy, and we want to, it's the oil companies and their excessive profits that's causing all these problems. And those things just have a psychological impact on business overall, that these people don't like us. And it's very pro-worker, but unless that rhetoric shifts a little bit, I just think that over the next couple of years, businesses are not really going to be well inclined to make the investments or take the risks that they want to be doing. So we'll have to see. Listen, if the GOP takes control of Congress, there'll be a relative stalemate in Washington, and that might be the best thing that you and I could ever want for our companies.
All right. Well, this is as close to a political conversation as I want to get. Let me just ask you this. Do you have any stories you're working on right now coming up this week that you could give us a heads up on? Anything interesting for us to watch out for?
I do. So, yeah. So it's funny that, yeah. So on Monday, I'm going to be writing today, actually, which will be coming out sometime this week for the Inquirer. About a recent business bankruptcy law that was just changed. Back in 2019, Congress passed the Small Business Reorganization Act, which made it easier for small businesses to apply for Chapter 11. And it's called Subchapter 5. It reduced the requirements and made it special for small business. There's another legislation. I just interviewed Senator Grassley about this, who's one of the sponsors of the bill, that it is going to it's extending this Small Business Reorganization Act, the limits. It can be any business with up to $7.5 million in liabilities, which includes a good amount of businesses that can be eligible for this program. And the reason why I think it's important is because I spoke to a couple of bankruptcy attorneys. They say not a lot of businesses have been declaring bankruptcy, over the past couple of years, even with the pandemic. But with you and I were talking about the downturn, there's this expectation that more businesses are going to be looking for potential bankruptcy protection if they can't get themselves back on their feet. And this new law might be a really key thing to saving them and keeping them in business while they reorganize, particularly if it's a very small business. So that's something that I do plan on writing about this week, among some other things.
Cool. We'll keep an eye out for that. As you can tell, Gene Marks is a CPA who writes on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor, and Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Lauren. We will talk to you next week.
Have a great week, everyone.